China is an integral part of the global economy. To a country like Australia, it's a key export market, both for our commodities and also our service exports. To a country like the US, it's a key provider of capital. And because of that, it's really important to continue to assess current conditions in China, both in terms of the growth rate they're experiencing and also the quality of that growth. With the recently released data, GDP is the best place to start. It gives us a good overview as to the current momentum in the economy, but also sector-by-sector detail as to where growth is actually occurring in any particular quarter and over the year. What we saw in the March quarter estimate for 2017 was another robust result, with growth accelerating slightly to 6.9%. That compares to 6.8% in the December quarter of 2016. That's the second successive quarter in a row where we've seen an upside surprise come through relative to the market expectation, and really shows the very robust momentum we are seeing in the Chinese economy at the moment. Now, as important as the headline number is, it's also important to consider what's sort of happening in terms of the detail of the release. And here we see quite a strong outcome for consumers, with growth being primarily supported by consumption in the quarter, but also building momentum in investment as well. And we'll discuss that a little bit more going forward. The key point, I guess, for authorities is to note that against their sort of around 6.5% target for 2017, this is going to be setting themselves in a very strong position to achieve that, and indeed exceed that target for 2017 overall. So just as important as those headline growth outcomes is the breadth of growth we're seeing across the economy. So through 2016, it was a little bit disappointing because we didn't really have manufacturing firing. That was a function of a weaker global economy, as well as a weakness in the domestic construction sector. What we've seen as 2016 ended and 2017 began is we're seeing quite a strong pickup in momentum in manufacturing and also in construction. And that's leading to quite solid outcomes in terms of overall growth, but also importantly, sort of job opportunities and income opportunities for households across the economy. In addition to that, we're also seeing the services sector really continuing on at quite a robust pace of growth, around about 11% in normal terms. And that's really, again, supporting the improvement in terms of employment prospects across the economy and allowing for, I guess, hope for better sort of income prospects for households across the economy, particularly in those major metro areas where they're looking to move away from manufacturing and into sort of more of a service-based economy, which typically provide higher incomes over the long run. Given the growth outcomes we have seen over the past 6 months, it's not that surprising we're starting to see a better sort of underlying dynamics on investment. Through 2016, it was really about the public sector providing investment across the economy through utilities and infrastructure spending, which is basically looking to further urbanise the population and provide that sort of key infrastructure that needs to allow that sort of growth to occur. What we've seen as 2016 ended and 2017 began was that the private sector has started to build more momentum, and we're seeing both across sort of private residential and also non-residential activity sort of more positive growth prospects for 2017. In large part, this is really about the residential property sector, where we're seeing very strong price growth starting to lead to an increase in new construction, and that's been obviously a key add for investment overall. But in addition to that, we're also seeing signs that the non-residential investment across the manufacturing and sort of other key areas of the economy is also starting to improve. And that's a real positive because we need to see that sort of momentum come through as we end 2017 and move into 2018, when there's unlikely to be as much support from the public sector. One risk to look out for, however, is credit growth in the Chinese economy. Now, it is fair to say that there is a significant amount of leverage amongst the state-owned enterprises, and there is a need to actually work that over time. But what we really need to focus on right now is the sort of provision of credit sort of in a momentum sense, which is really what's feeding investment and also consumption at the moment. And there is, I guess, a positive element at the moment because we have seen quite a significant increase in credit being provided by the banks as well as the shadow banking system. But there are risks that will sort of ebb as we move through the year. Notably, with regards to residential property, we have seen authorities look to rein in, I guess, speculative activity in the major cities, and that's likely to see less credit provided. In addition to that, it is still the case that small and medium-sized businesses are really relying on the shadow banking system rather than the big banks, which means they have to pay more for their credit, and also it's much harder to actually get that credit, and that's going to be an impediment to investment. And these are going to be really quite key themes as we move through 17 and into 18, and in the hope that we'll see sort of continued robust growth in 2018, we need to see that sort of provision of credit continue to improve and provide that solid base for the economy. Just before closing for the week, it would be remiss of me not to mention that the Australian CPI for the March quarter will be released on Wednesday. This is obviously a very key release in terms of the RBA's understanding of the economy, and is very much still in focus despite seeing relatively benign inflation outcomes for a long period of time now. Come Q1, we're looking for a 0.6% gain in the quarter, which will leave annual growth at about 2.3%. That's up from 1.5%, but still is at the lower end of the RBA's 2 to 3% target range, which they look to when setting policy. In terms of the sort of key components of the release that are coming through and providing that 0.6% gain for prices overall, pharmaceuticals and energy prices are likely to be on the upside and providing that momentum. Equally, that's largely being offset by what we're seeing in terms of food and some other tradable items. So it's still going to be a fairly benign outcome and one that's not going to give any particular concern to the RBA. For us to see sort of stronger inflation going forward, we really need to see an improvement in the labour market. And although there are some leading indicators of that coming through, we are really yet to see that come through in the hard data. So there'll be no real concern about the overall inflation prospects and continue to move along in terms of that sort of lower to some mid part of the target range. We'll come back next week and provide you all the sort of key detail from the CPI release. We'll see you next week.